The Battle of Chippawa was fought on July 5th, 1814, which is the second year of the War of 1812. The setup is roughly the Americans have crossed the Niagara River south of Chippawa at Fort Erie with roughly 6,000 troops, regular and militia. They have taken Fort Erie and they are beginning their advance north. The British, unaware that Fort Erie has already fallen, begin advancing south from Fort George. The British are under the command of Major General Phineas Ryle. Ryle is a sort of noble officer. He is a major general, but he has seen very little actual combat action during the Napoleonic era. So he has kind of bought his commissions to move up in the ranks. He saw some action in capturing of some small French islands, such as Martinique and Guadeloupe, I believe. He is new to the Canadas, and this will be his first action. He has about 2,100 troops, 1,500 of which are regulars, the rest are light infantry and Indian allies. The Americans are led by Major General Jacob Brown, who has been a successful commander, successfully defending Sackett's Harbor and capturing Fort Erie earlier in the war. His commanders are General Porter, who commands the militia, about 750, and the Iroquois Native Indians, about 600, and Brigadier General Winfield Scott, who will be the commander in charge for this battle. So the battle starts with the British crossing the Chippewa River. First is their light infantry and native allies, which cross in front of the main body and proceed into the forests, which kind of line this open plain that we have here along the river. So the light infantry and native allies move into the forests and they begin harassing Scott's troops. It's July 5th, so Scott was going to give his troops a July 4th Independence Day parade, but things will be different. So these native allies and light British troops begin harassing the Americans. General Porter, with the Iroquois allies and militia, is dispatched to deal with these skirmishers. Porter successfully flushes out the British from the forest. While doing so, he encounters Ryle's main force, who is now advancing. Porter's troops are beaten back, which is when Scott begins bringing up his troops, and Porter informs Scott of the British advance. Scott crosses Streets Creek and begins deploying his troops. Scott will deploy his batteries under Townsend on his right flank, and this battery will successfully duel and knock out the British batteries, and they will be pretty decisive in this battle. Scott deploys his line, and General Ryle is going to advance on this line. Now, the Americans are wearing light gray uniforms. These are their parade uniforms, and they had ordered their traditional navy blue uniforms, but they have not arrived yet. So Ryle sees these troops wearing light gray. He assumes that they are militia and orders his troops to advance in line onto Scott's line. Now, there are more British troops here than American. There are about 1,500 regular British troops, and there are only 1,300 American regular troops. And that's important. This is a thoroughly European affair here. It's in an open field, and we have troops advancing in line on each other. Traditionally, this would be the British fight to win. The Americans really have not stood in a field and fought British like this before and come out as victors. So this is going to be something new. Ryle has his troops advance in line on the American line. As they do so, they advance over uneven ground and gaps are opened on their right flank specifically. They are advancing in line, so it is slow, they lose formation, and they are subject to withering American fire. Scott repositions his lines to take advantage of the British flanks, which are exposed, and is able to inflict heavy casualties on the British. The British exchange one volley before advancing with the bayonet. However, this charge is beaten back by the Americans, and the British are forced to retreat. The British retreat back across the Chippewa River. They demolish the bridge across as they retreat, which will lead to a short standoff across the Chippewa River. And eventually, when the Americans do cross, this will lead to the Battle of Lundy's Lane. So, the British and American meet on an open field. The British have superiority in numbers. However, the well-trained American regulars are able to beat the British. And this is pretty significant that two regular armies, British and Americans, meet, and the Americans handily defeat the British. The casualties were about 61 American killed, 255 wounded, 108 British killed, 350 wounded, 46 captured. Obviously, numbers you can get different numbers from different sources. So that was the Battle of Chippawa.